Hello and welcome to Herein Lies the Peace of God in the Awakening Together Sanctuary. The Awakening Together Sanctuary is an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. The host of Herein Lies the Peace of God is Reverend Jacquelyn and Eckert, the President and Minister of Awakening Together. Our co-host is your favorite anarchist preacher, Reverend Glen Ganaway, integral scholar. The Course in Miracles says this about discerning one truth. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Sing glory, glory, hallelujah. How wonderful thy holy name. Now I can see with God's own vision, and I see peace instead of pain. Yes, I see peace instead of pain. I can see peace instead of pain. Amen.
Doggies. I mean, wee doggies.
I know it's an important aspect of the traditions that we want to uphold, as we say. How are you, Jacquelyn? How's your week been?
I'm great. Busy. Pretty good.
I see your hair's up. That usually means when my mother wore her hair up, it was because she was busy.
Yes, it means I didn't have time to do my hair. You're a smart man, Glen Ganaway.
Well, I think I think women are wonderful, so I kind of pay attention to the habits and things, and people are just really super fascinating, and women in particular are really super fascinating to me because I'm not one, right? But we're doing one of the shortest ones tonight. So I thought maybe before we get into too much, I want to hear about your week and how have you been thinking about this idea of we're on actually number 9.
Section 9, yeah.
I know. Are changes required in the life situation of God's teachers? Do you have any experience with life changes on picking up A Course in Miracles? Or what if like any life changes this week? I don't know.
Oh, well, this week, no, nothing radical this week. It's so funny. This being the shortest section in this manual for teachers, and yet it encompasses all of it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it really does, because this is the whole thing right here. I mean, you get this and you get the whole thing. So as far as personal changes this past week, no, of course, I had radical change in my life. As you know, I quit my job for life and gave up my 6-figure salary for life, and left a husband, although I've done that several times, so that probably doesn't count. And sold my house, sold my car. I mean, just totally went, okay, now what? So yeah, I mean, I have certainly experienced those major changes. And I think, you may know where these questions came from. I don't know if you do, but I think this question is one that when spiritual students go, okay, I'm ready to make the commitment. Oh, it's like, what's that going to mean in my life? What's that going to look like? And I have to leave my family, quit my job, and all. And I did that, but you don't have to do that.
For me, it was when I looked at I didn't see a whole lot of people that I admired, right? Like And the people I did admire were old, bald, wore orange, spoke another language often, right?
Orange.
They were monks or renunciates.
I got that. Yeah.
Okay. So
it's funny because the prisoners used to wear orange too. So I just wanted.
I know. See, there's the one time it was a long time ago, not too long ago. I was getting very into mantra, as you know. Yolanda and I really enjoy mantras. We were getting into especially the Sikh or the Sikh tradition. Waheguru and and I was really getting a lot of emotional hits with this music, with this mantra. It was going deeper. It was really, things were getting into exploring ideas. And so I have a conversation with Holy Spirit. We're like this. So I talked to, I'm talking to my guide, and I'm joking with her. Because she's got a great sense of humor. And I says, so you're gonna make me wear a turban? You're gonna, these changes. We're talking about changes. I'm being afraid of changes. I said, no, I'm joking to her. He goes, oh yeah, you're gonna make me wear a turban, aren't you? I'm gonna have to never cut my hair again. And I've really, you're gonna make me never cut my hair again, and you're gonna make me wear a turban, aren't you? And she made that joke that you just made. No, but I might make you wear orange. And it wasn't the orange of the monk's robes. It was prisoner orange. So she says, don't play with me. It's like, don't tempt me with, with all, you think you're kidding, but these things have been known to happen. People have given up their life, changed their whole everything, because they wanted to get close to me. So don't count anything out of the realm of possibilities,
Well, John Sherman woke up in prison, so if he can do it,
yeah,
apparently it can be done.
Oh yeah. That's the famous arc story of Saul Paul, that he went to prison. He did a lot of those letters and things from prison, which is why MLK's letter from a Birmingham jail is situated in the style of writing to Corinthians and writing to the church when he's in jail, because Paul was in jail, and he actually persecuted Christians for the state as a job, so it's quite a little change. Changed all your friends, changed your politics, changed your location, had to go in hiding. Waking up to the truth might not be the best thing for your career.
I can vouch for that.
I can too. Getting in line with my own integrity. It has almost been a journey at finding a job that I felt like wasn't outside of my integrity. Actually working and doing something and contributing to the world in which I wasn't part of, a megalomaniacal operation to grab assets and power, because that's generally what I've done for most of my career, is helped somebody else and skimmed a little off the top for me as much as they let me, be able to acquire as many, assets and things as possible,
It's interesting because since I've been on the path in earnest, since I left my job, I've gone back and done, substitute judging. And I think it's a great place to do. I think it's a great job to do from this perspective. I really do. My attitude towards it changed. And frankly, the people that I was working with, the defendants' attitudes changed as well. They're like, yes, Judge, you're right. Thank you. I mean, I've had people say, thank you for locking me up. But when I went back, I found a really different attitude. It was about helping people take accountability for their own actions.
Yep.
So, yeah. So,
I know.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Have you read the book of Judges in the Bible?
Oh gosh, no. No.
might relate to what you just said, with just like getting the people to take accountability for what's happening in their lives and the communities and the things like that. Judges is, it's a lot about accountability, what you said, and reminding the people that they must change. You must change. You must get on with, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep up with this. You can't remain asleep. You've got to change. You have to take responsibility, and you have to change.
It's right back here, right?
Right. Isn't that funny? It's just like there are, like you said, the whole thing is in this. And although there's like 2 paragraphs to this, I wrote probably 3 times that, and then I had to pare it down and pare it down and pare it down, because there's just so much there. I remember when I had my big kind of awakening. I've had several, I'm sure, and it's an incremental thing. It's been kind of an incremental thing for me with some big explosions. But one of those big explosions was I left my, just like you did, I left a very good job, a husband, and a house, and my family, and a marriage, when I realized that I wanted to go in one direction, and my whole life was going in another direction, and I've actually spoken to my ex since then, and we're both grateful for that. He now has the life that he wants, instead of, my change and the heartbreak and everything was exactly the best thing for him too.
The same thing is true for my ex. He's so happy. He's doing exactly what he wanted to do, and he wasn't when we were together. So it's always in everyone's best interest if it's in.
It doesn't look that way, does it?
Not at the time, no. It didn't look anything like that. Yeah.
And they tell you, even in AA, they said, don't make any changes, any big life changes in the first year. Most addiction programs will tell you not to get in and not to start a relationship, not to move, not to start a new job, or anything for at least a year, because that stuff is going to happen anyway if it does. And all of us know plenty of people that received the truth and their whole life blew up, and
but I think we should be clear. Our change is required in the life situation of God's teachers. And the answer is no, not necessarily. So I just, we're like, oh yeah, you got to quit your job, you got to leave your family, and you don't. I mean, that's the bottom line. You don't. So I just don't want people going,
We remember the really exceptional cases, what she calls special cases.
Isn't that interesting? She used that word. I thought it was so interesting. She used that word.
Because we do want to be,
because special in A Course in Miracles is a bad word.
We use it as a bad word, but because what is the purpose of a special relationship? To wake you is to wake you up. It's like to be the, there's 3 kinds of relationships: the people that are coming, people that stay with you, the people that go in and out, and acquaintances. Those are the 3 things. And the ones that stick with you, the long ones, are the special relationships, and you have the most to learn from those people.
That's a good point. Okay.
Absolutely.
Back my earlier statement.
Yeah, it's like, Yolanda could say, yeah, Glenn still has a lot to learn. I'm sure that Yolanda would definitely say, I still have a lot to learn, but that's what, but that is, I wanted to talk about the motivation for this question, because, we do want that change. I mean, we come to the spiritual wake, we come to the spiritual questions because we want things, we want to feel differently. We want something to be different, or we realize that I don't want it this way. I don't know what way I want it, but I don't want this anymore. So it's really tempting to say, if I do this, I'll get some really big change. And that's what every life coach is going to tell you. That's what every job coach is going to tell you. I'm here to flip your life upside down.
Yeah, but at the same time, people want, I mean, it's fear. The motivation, obviously, for the question is fear. Yeah, but what are you going to take away from me that I think is valuable?
It goes immediately to loss. Goes immediately to loss. Absolutely to loss. You know, and you know, and losing our identity, losing our sense of self and individuality. Changes are required in the minds of the teachers of God. Shauna reminds us, and I have that underlined in my own notes. So maybe we should get to the reading.
I think that was Shauna's subtle way of saying, "Are y'all going to read or what?"
Well, actually, you've begun to quote the course, so let's do some reading, shall we? So this is from the Manual for Teachers. It's chapter 9. Are changes required in the life situation of God's teachers? And the first sentence Shauna quoted for us: changes are required in the minds of God's teachers. This may or may not involve changes in the external situation. Remember that no one is where he is by accident, and chance plays no part in God's plan. It is most unlikely that changes in attitudes would not be the first step in the newly made teacher of God's training. There is, however, no set pattern. Since training is always highly individualized, there are those who are called upon to change their life situation almost immediately. And these are generally special cases. By far the majority are given a slowly evolving training program in which as many previous mistakes as possible are corrected. Relationships, in particular, must be properly perceived, and all dark cornerstones of unforgiveness removed. Otherwise, the old thought system still has a basis for return. As the teacher of God advances in his training, he learns one lesson with increasing thoroughness. He does not make his own decisions, as he asks his teacher for his answer, and it is this he follows as his guide for action. This becomes easier and easier as the teacher of God learns to give up his own judgment. The giving up of judgment, the obvious prerequisite for hearing God's voice, is usually a fairly slow process, but not because it's difficult, but because it is apt to be perceived as personally insulting. The world's training is directed toward achieving a goal in direct opposition to that of our curriculum. The world trains for reliance on one's judgment as the curriculum for maturity and strength. Our curriculum trains for the relinquishment of judgment as the necessary condition of and that's 2 paragraphs.
That's the whole 2 paragraphs, yeah. And there's a lot packed in there.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So let's look at this. When we opened and I said that this contains it all, really, it's this change of mind that is liberation, that is freedom, that is salvation. And it's the change of mind that may bring about changes in the external situation. And I think we've talked about that, you with your husband and me with mine. And, you know, it's just, that's not where my life was going. And I think it's because we realize what's valuable, right? Yeah. So, It's interesting. I'm sorry, I'm getting down into granular detail. I thought, isn't that interesting that she wrote this? So, but remember that no one is where he is by accident, and chance plays no part in God's plan. It's just really funny because it's that anthropomorphic. It invokes that anthropomorphic view of God, right? Oh, like God's up there and he's going to go, okay, now I drew this little line and you follow that one, and I'm going to draw this one and you follow that one. And of course, that's not how it works. Yeah, the puppet master, and that's not how it works. It's just not. So I think it's interesting that she said that, and I don't know if he said that as a means of assuaging, that fear that we were talking about, right? It's all perfectly planned. Don't worry. I believe that there are no accidents, but I don't think that there's, a God with a clipboard that's made some grand plan. That really is a little bit off point. So I apologize for that, but I just thought it just.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
I don't think so. I don't think so. A minute. It's like there are no accidents. Yeah, it really lends itself to like the saying that determinism. That's also we know we know it's not true. Like everything's already written in stone.
So then she says it's most likely that changes in his attitudes would not be the first step in the newly made teacher of God's training. And I felt in contemplating this, I felt to look up the word attitude. And the generic definition for attitude is a settled way of thinking or feeling about someone or something. A settled way of thinking or feeling about someone or something, typically one that's reflected in a person's behavior. And I thought, wow, I mean, that really seems to fit this, doesn't it? Right? I mean, your attitude changes, so there may be some changes in your life, right? And we're talking about fundamentally a change in attitude is what this whole flip is. I've said it several times lately, so you may be aware that I'm rereading Michael Berg's The Way about the Kabbalah. And the fundamental change that is talked about in that book is the change from the desire to receive, the transformation from the desire to receive for oneself alone to the desire to receive in order to share. Yeah, so it's interesting that this change in of course Jesus Christ talked about being born again, right? So this fundamental change in attitude is what it's all about, frankly. I also noted that when I pulled that up in my little browser, on the side of the page, it said attitude in psychology. So there's a definition about what it meant in psychology. And I thought it was so interesting because it says, in psychology, attitude is a psychological construct, a mental and emotional entity that inheres in or characterizes a person. I'm like, well, can you say false self? Can you say ego? So, and of course, we know that that's where Helen was. That's her background. So whatever she received was filtered through that psychology background. So, I think that change in attitude is right on, right? Because you've got to change this this bolstering of the false self, of the little self, right? This imposter self, for the truth of your being, or self with a capital S, right? So it really is a change in belief in entities, right? So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Let's see. She said, there are those who are called upon to change their life situation almost immediately. And I'm like, immediately after what? Well, so I just thought it was interesting that she didn't make that any clearer. And so then I went back and I looked at who are the teachers of God, who are God's teachers.
All those that say they are.
Yes. Well, and His qualifications consist solely in this: somehow, somewhere, he has made a deliberate choice in which he did not see his interest as apart from someone else's. So really, that's the call and the answer, right? That's the saying, yes, I recognize that whatever's going on out here is insanity, and that this does not answer my heart's true desire. So while she doesn't talk about the call, I think that's exactly what's going on. I think the moment that grace allows us to see our interest as aligned with someone else's, as it's not separate from someone else's, that is that's the call and the answer. As of course Miracle says, simultaneous, right? It's that recognition, because as soon as the call comes, the recognition is, of course, that's insane. This world's insane. Of course, I want to follow my true desire, and the knowledge that your true desire is not what you've been living, been seeing, been experiencing, is simultaneous with even the idea that there could be something different. Which I interpret as that call.
I hear hope in that. Just like, it's like, oh, there's something different. There's more than what I know. It isn't just downhill. I don't have to just make do.
Well, and that, I mean, certainly that was my understanding of Helen's experience. Right. Yeah, after being in those meetings where everybody was just at everybody else's throat, and she's like, "Oh my God, there's got to be a better way." Yeah. So that recognition of the insanity was the answer to the call to, yeah, you're right. Come on back. Come on back. There is a better way. Let me tell you what it is. So anyway, there are those who are called upon to change their life situation almost immediately, but these are generally special cases. And, what I went through in my experience was pretty dramatic. But I've been doing this my whole life. I mean, my father was a minister. We got these books, A Course in Miracles, back in the early 80s, not long after they came out. So while there have been dramatic steps, like leaps for me, it's been a long process.
Would you characterize it as a slow evolving training program?
Yes. Most definitely. I mean, particularly because I don't know why, but you go, "Oh, I got it." You ain't got it. You got an inkling. You got an inkling. Every time you think you got it, you've got an inkling. So as with any other training program, right? I mean, you could, just like in a regular job, you do something for 20 years, then you got it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it has to take 20 years. I'm just saying that, agreeing with this, that generally it does. The nuances, and we talk about this being like a spiral staircase, right? The nuances, and then you revisit it again, and then you revisit it again, and then you revisit it again.
Skills development. Yes.
It's skills development. Exactly. You're exactly right. Skills development. And we're going to talk about that in this next paragraph. I want to say a couple more things about what she said in here. And she talks about, let me read it. By far, the majority of people are given a slowly evolving training program in which as many previous mistakes as possible are corrected. And of course, when she's talking about the correction of mistakes, she doesn't mean you're going to go back and, fix stuff. It's about the correction and perception. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she makes that obvious in the next sentence, because she says relationships in particular must be properly perceived. So that's the correction. The mistake is just misperception, and the correction is this correct perception. And all dark cornerstones of unforgiveness removed. And she's talking here about relationships, and relationships is an interesting idea for me. But I will say that what I see here is that when she talks about unforgiveness, this unforgiveness is the belief Okay, my reading of A Course in Miracles, I kind of reworked some of it just so I could read it, and and then it really flowed for me. And one of the things was that forgiveness is about understanding that all is well all the time. You might call it the living all method, right? But all is well all the time. So unforgiveness would be about would be the belief that someone or something needed to be different. Mm-hmm. And that's why, relationships would be are so important, right? Because we get to see they don't need to change. I mean, we do it in root cause inquiry is, if my mind were perfectly healed, how would I be encountering this situation? Would I be upset this way? How would I deal with this upset? How would I see this upset? So it's nothing needs to be different ever.
Not even my partner.
Definitely not your partner. She's perfect. We love her. But not the generic partner either.
I mean,
no.
Yeah, that's why people get in relationships. So the other person will change them, or they can change the other person,
Yes. I wouldn't know anything about that.
Me either. I'm on number 5. I don't know about you.
Yeah, something like that. 5. Yeah. I forgot that we were neck and neck there.
We are.
Yeah. So again, she talks about all the dark cornerstones of unforgiveness being removed in these relationships. And we talk about it in terms of reprogramming the brain, right? In terms of looking, when I'm upset, looking this way instead of that way. I mean, that's just one example. I mean, we have a number of tools to reprogram the brain, and that's what's being here. She says otherwise, talked about here. She says otherwise, the old thought system still has a basis for return. So you can have the holiest of experiences, but if you still think your bad mood is because so and so did such and such, you're right back there. You're right back there. So I'll move on to the next paragraph. I hope I'm not taking more than here. She says, as a teacher of God advances in his training, he learns one lesson with increasing thoroughness. He does not make his own decisions. He asks his, and I would say inner teacher, for his answer. And it is this he follows as his guide for action. She talks about giving up judgment in this paragraph. She talks about giving up judgment being the obvious prerequisite for hearing God's voice. She talks about how different this is than the curriculum that we're going through is from the world's curriculum, which says judgment's fabulous. And what I really see in this paragraph is, when she's talking about judgment, she doesn't mean, ooh, you're ugly. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, that is a judgment, but not limited to that kind of judgment. It's the belief that I can decide what's in my best interest and in the best interest of anybody around me. And I can't make that determination. And to the extent that I make those judgments, all I'm doing is reinforcing the belief in a false self, reinforcing the idea of a separate self. I see through that filter of a separate self. I'm always worried about protecting that self. And even when I don't seem to be thinking about that separate self, I'm thinking about that separate self, right? I'm trying to protect it, puff it up, make it feel good. That's what the world does. That's what the world calls healthy, a good, healthy ego, right? We don't want good, healthy egos. We don't. Not in the way we discussed that.
Yeah, not the way that they talk about a healthy ego.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You got to establish your boundaries. Okay, wait a second. But it's like this, and this is the whole journey because I see through that filter, and because my true concern is about protecting that self, which is what the ego is designed to do, protect that self and protect that self's programs. That has to be given up. I have to learn. I cannot judge for myself because, first of all, I can't see anything clearly because I'm looking through that filter. And second, anything that I'm inclined to do is just going to reinforce that belief in a separate self. So I have to surrender to my higher self, the whatever you want to call it, inner wisdom, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. I have to surrender, and I have to do that consistently. And as I do that consistently, that's when I really begin to make progress. I think it's interesting that she says it's not hard to do that, but it's personally insulting. Who's insulted? Well, the little false self, right? Yeah, little ego. Oh, you're a village, right? So that's where we are. So this curriculum trains for the relinquishment of judgment as the necessary condition of salvation, because the relinquishment of judgment is the relinquishment of your belief in separate beings in a separate world. That's it. I'm done.
It's wild. That's why she says you need training.
We do.
I do. And I found it luckily in a lot of different ways. I've realized that my training started long before I thought it did. That I have been taken care of and looked after, and more than I ever thought. That I'm cared for, loved, seen, and heard more
so.
More than I ever acknowledged or believed or could see, perceive, or even experience. And it's always been there, And my training has been to be able to has been a course in reality, recognition of reality, versus wanting to stay in my Plato's cave of perception, my second and third hands, So that's get in my academic Plato's cave reference, make sure that happens.
I was just thinking about that analogy the other day in regard to something else. I thought it was interesting you mentioned it. Thank you for mentioning it.
I just do what I'm told. She goes, mention Plato's cave. So that's whatever that is. So we're at are changes required in the life teachers, in the life situation of God's teachers? I certainly hope there happen, but they aren't required. And not require them is just as scary. You mean I'm going to be like this forever? Or I do want this to change? Or it's like, all of this is like, isn't something going to happen? Isn't my life going to get better? I mean, at this point, we've talked about this before. The hermeneutics of A Course in Miracles is she's talking to an ego who thinks it's a real thing, who thinks it's you. A lot of who she's talking to is she's talking to past the ego, but the ego doesn't understand it. We're perceiving on the other side, like you call it, a filter. We're on the other side of this filter, and the Holy Spirit is shredding the filter. It's just shredding this filter, for us. As our work, as part of our training. So changes are required. So the requirements are change. That's great. That's a really good thing. Change is required. And where are they required? They're required in the mind, because as we've learned in A Course in Miracles, errors are in the mind. This speaks directly to to cultivate willingness, to cultivate this sense of, I don't know, but I'm going to try, curiosity, willingness, all of those things come into play. It's even plays to our strengths. It was like, I'm going to prove this wrong. All of these things play to, the engagement, whatever it takes to engage, always the engagement, always and the Holy Spirit is there often for me in holding up the engagement, holding up the in curiosity and interest. And this speaks also to the realization that I love, that all things change, so I do not need to monitor them. I do not need to preserve and monitor this decay, monitoring the decay of rising and falling of things, which the world tells me is the only thing that's valuable, is to monitor the rise and fall of material objects, including my own body. And it speaks peripherally to how much do you trust the process? which is like the very, very, very first thing that she talks about in the teacher's manual. She goes through 7, like, first of all, you need to develop trust. So we're on like number 9. And so she goes, if you've done this and you developed a little bit of trust, can you even trust the process at this point? We had one awakening. Are you curious to know what the next awakening is? If this process worked a little bit, what if you really did it? What if you committed to doing it? What if you did it a little, do it a little bit, do it as much as you can, and it works so well, then why don't you do it more? What's the thing, because I'm going to have to wear orange and shave my head and learn another language and, lose something. We're still in that thing of a loss in this part. So there are no accidents. And I wrote, including people, people aren't accidents. No one comes into my encounter on an accident. The deli guy or the person I'm angry with, or there are no, I'm there as an encounter, as a component of this experience. I'm a necessary component of what's happening here. That responsibility, I think, is a really good one, as far as like to keep focused on what I'm doing, what is in front of me, what I'm doing, what is mine to do, what is, like you're saying, we'll get to this. What attitude am I bringing to the situation? Because I can have an attitude. So, and I love that there's no such thing as luck. Because I've been called lucky a lot in my life. You are so lucky. You are so lucky. Been called. I don't think there's anything about. I don't think luck is real. And she said, so we get to step 1. Step 1 is the acknowledgement that I need to change my attitude. I need a change of attitude. And that begs the question, like you were talking, the way I think about it is, what's my default setting? What do I keep going back to? What's the thing I always return to? My mother beat me. Or what's the thing I always return to? I can't have what I want. What's the thing that I always, return to? Nobody likes me. What's the thing that I always have to try too hard? I'm not smart enough. What's the things that we continue? And that's good to watch. It's good to watch those things. I need a change of attitude. What's my default setting? And she says this is a highly individualized, slow training process. So that's like, this has been customized. All this. Your awakening is customized just for you, because you're you and everything. That's the ethics of this. You just have to turn toward the light, I'm finding. So highly individual, there's an individual pattern that she's asking us to develop. That's our individual, I think she's alluding to an individual practice. Discover your own training program, discover your own individual pattern of self-care and awakening and practice, and don't compare them to what other people are doing. And what others have done. There's an authentic expression in each of us. But don't we love the drama of special cases? Don't we put people with special cases, the special cases, up on the Eckert Tolle, who's homeless on a bench, gets awakened. That's a really, really great story. The slowly evolving training program is just not going to get renewed for a second season. I don't think, So there's no comparisons. To realize the drama of wanting to be, that drama aspect of being special, and the special aspect of being highly individualized, is really it's comforting to me. So this slow evolving training program is most effective when you're conscious in relationships. It is in our relationships and our individual encounters with each other and the world in which we discover what our default settings are. That's a lot how we do that. And it's this slow training through relationships is where we discover the dark cornerstones of unforgiveness for our, the thing that we've built, right? She calls this a cornerstone, discovering a dark cornerstone of unforgiveness. Now, what do cornerstones do? You dig a hole and you put them first. It's the first thing that you put into a building before you put it up. This cornerstone, it's foundational. So, and everything hinges on it. They put, if you've seen these buildings in New York, the cornerstone, there's they have numbers, like the numbers, dates are numbers, but you have this like 1878 or whatever, like these old buildings that have the cornerstone where it's written, in churches do this a lot too. The cornerstone, the dedication of the cornerstone. How often have you been at a dedication for like a building and things like that, where they lay the cornerstone? The foundations of society's laws are built on the cornerstones of what we say is real. So she's and if we all do this, if we're all involved in this slow training program, and I believe that we all are, not just the people who've opened A Course in Miracles that have this special case, but I think we're all on this slowly evolving training program to discover where we as a collective have placed dark corners of unforgiveness, dark cornerstones of forgiveness in our society, and have built the world and have built structures around those dark corners of unforgiveness. And it's worth looking at as a collective. The second paragraph is just as packed. She says, she begins this paragraph by saying we're learning to listen, right? We're learning to listen to the inner voice. We're learning to listen to our guide. We're actually learning to listen when other people are talking, to what they're saying behind what they're saying. To the world, when we encounter what we're doing, to listen to what's happening, really happening, instead of being on automatic. Right? That's what she goes, catch yourself going into automatic, catch yourself going into the program. So she says, this 669 pages is all about one lesson. I'm taking we're going to do 669 pages to talk, plus the manual for teachers, plus the clarification of terms, plus the song of prayer, for one lesson. And it's counterintuitive. It says, I don't make any decision by myself. Either I'm making it with the programming that I've been given, like by society and my family and the trauma. Either I'm making a decision based on all of those people, all of those experiences, or I'm making it here and now with my guide that is actually reality, right? Actually love and power and strength and integrity, and has my best interest in mind and knows more than me. Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I do that? So that's what she says. Just try it out. Just be simple and gentle about it, and just do as much as you can, because you'll start the ball rolling and you'll want more training. Right? So yes. Exactly. I have a guide. I'm not alone and friendless, that reassurance again, that trust is there, that I give up judgment, because if I give up judgment, it's supposed to become easier. If I want things to be easier. Now, the prerequisite is hearing the voice for God. That's why it's just this listening. Are we even listening to what's happening? The judgment is, I believe, like I've said, is like this pre-programming. It's culture, it's trauma. And the realization is that discernment is not of the mind, but of letting the mind go, of letting judgment go. Amen. It's the return to what I like beginning to say, our truest nature, our true nature as the child of God. So I'm not thinking about being a good person. I'm not thinking about being Glenn. I'm not thinking about doing good or being good or looking good or being effective. I'm just doing what I'm told. I'm doing what I'm told. I'm doing what is like mine to do, as a way of letting it take care of itself. You know, the way Regina talks about, if your body can't take care of itself if you'll let it. You know, you can step back and let your body take care of itself, because it's doing a lot of that already. You know, we can take care, it will take care of your needs. It will tell you what's going on if we listen. Again, listen. But I love this, where the way these things always track. This week, if you're doing, we're going to talk about this on Sunday. So be prepared. Chapter 30, the new beginning, section 2, the rules for decision, says this.
I saw that too.
What?
Go ahead. I thought of that same section when I was reading this. Go ahead.
That's just like how weird it is. We're doing this at the same time as doing that. It's just like they said, do I need any more confirmation that there are no accidents? How many times does this have to happen before I accept that that's normal? And when this is not happening, something's not normal. Right? Not normal is when this isn't happening. I'm uncomfortable. I start to get uncomfortable. So this is what she said. There's 7 rules for decision making. The first is, today I will make no decisions for myself. Number 1, I will make no decisions for myself. The second is, if I make no decisions for myself, that is the day that will be given me. So then the third, then something always goes horribly wrong. After step, you contemplate what you want, and then, you know, like every good movie, something goes horribly wrong, and something happens that you do not want to happen in your day. And so the third thing is, I have no question, I forgot what to decide, because we're back into our programming. Catch yourself going back into the programming. And the fourth is, at least I can decide I do not like what I feel now. Game changing, absolutely game changing. And then fifth is just as game changing for me is, so I hope I've been wrong. I hope I was wrong. How about that for like shooting like your ego, like this you know, that doing this for I just the ego thing. I love it. There's so much letting go. I hope and the maturity happens when I'm able to say I'm wrong and quickly admit when I'm wrong. And 6 is, I want another way of looking at this. You know, and Yolanda's song comes to mind. I want another way of looking at the world. I could see peace instead of this. You know, I want another way of looking at the world. And then that's what this slow training is about, isn't it? I want another way of looking at the world. But coming to this is because I want something to change. I want another way of looking at this. I want a new solution. I'm all out of solutions. And the final step 7 is, perhaps there's another way of looking at this. Perhaps, just perhaps. And she gets right at the point. She goes, what can I lose by asking? And that implies I'm willing to listen, but asking implies I'm willing to listen. But it's like, there's listening again. You know, it's like, are changes required in the teachers of God? Yeah, but none of the changes that you think are that you're thinking about. Probably, you know, it's a lifestyle. It eventually becomes something that I do not. The 7 seals of Revelation. Yeah, there you go. Seven's the number of the perfection of man. You know, it's, you know, this. So that's really, it's the combination of the material of 4 and the 3, which is the spiritual. It's the combination of those things. So it's the perfection of man, the perfection of being who we are, the self-realization, actualization. You know, so little numerology there. But what can I get by asking? And that's, again, being open-mindedness is coming back to beginner's mind. It's like, I don't know what's going on here. And if I'm doing things wrong and I'm getting my feelings hurt and things are going horribly wrong, I really do want to be wrong. Because if I can admit I'm wrong, do it quickly and understand what to change, I can like, whoa, I'm sorry. You know, whoa, I didn't know, you know, I take responsibility. It says, you know, that was hurtful. I was acting out of, you know, anger or whatever. That's not how I feel. You know, I'm scared. If I can admit that I'm frightened quickly, if I can admit that I don't know what's going on quickly, I'm much more likely to listen to somebody say, you know, do this, do that, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, it says that right there in the middle of the paragraph, the giving up of judgment is the obvious prerequisite for hearing God's voice. So, and that's exactly what the rules of decision talks about, right?
Uh-huh.
I must have been wrong.
I must,
I
yeah.
hope I was wrong.
Yeah, I hope so.
So I'm gonna let go of all judgment about how this situation came about, how it ought to go, what's my part in it. I'm gonna let all of that go, and that's the invitation to inner wisdom. What would you have me do now? How would you have me see this?
And how fast you can do that when you're angry or depressed or lonely, or how quickly we can do that. I can do that is a real testament to the training is stuck, and eventually, like anything I get good at, I stop having to think about it, and it just sort of begins to do itself, which is the value of training, right? Ask like I took piano lessons for a long time. I took guitar lessons. I love music, but I really cannot, without a lot of effort, get my left hand to do something different than my right hand. That's just like, so I could really be frustrated and double down and like really say, I'm going to be a musician and really do it and suffer a lot and become an okay musician. Or I could, just be, I could like, that's not what I'm supposed to do, even though I think it's valuable and it's wonderful and it's great. It's just not mine to do. And letting go of that was kind of hard for me because I wanted to be a boy with a guitar.
Who was it said to me the other day? Maybe it was Shauna. She said, you can't take a piano to the campfire.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure somebody's tried. Yeah, it's called an auto harp, actually. I don't know.
Oh,
maybe
that's
but so there we are. There
Yep.
is are changes required?
Yes, but not necessarily physical ones.
Yeah. And I'm glad. I'm glad I'm changing. I'm glad that I can read the Course in Miracles and teach from a Course in Miracles every year, and I teach it differently. I am glad that my relationship with Yolanda 20 years later is not there. She's not married to the same person that she was married to 20 years ago.
But she's glad too.
I hope so. Yeah. But oh no, Yolanda, she's exactly the same. No. Growing and maturing, and that's what I friends fall away if they don't change with, don't they? Have you ever noticed that some people come in and you continue to change, or she calls this evolving in this chapter, by the, she uses that word evolving. So it's like, are we? If you do, I can guarantee you'll evolve into some groups and you will evolve out of other groups of people and jobs and things like that. And that's not to be feared, but it certainly can be. If you have a question, I'm sorry.
Artist Prince.
What
the Artist Prince meant by all seven, and we'll watch them fall. Well, I don't know. I'll look that up, Audrey.
I don't know the ref. Yeah,
Audrey, it's really good to see you, by the way.
Well, he was a Jehovah's Witness. He knew a lot about Revelations.
There you go. I think you better take us out because Shauna's going to kick us out whether we've ended.
Let's try to let's.
Oh, Katie wants to share something. Okay. Wait, Shauna, is it okay? We can go a couple minutes over. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Katie.
Oh, cool. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Glenn, I enjoyed listening to what you said about the idea of being a musician or having that as a hobby. And I was today talking with a Course in Miracles student about that, and I'm having here a keyboard and I'm procrastinating, and then I had some insights, like it's when I'm really made for doing that, when it's really in this dream, when it's a part of my dream character story to do that and being And if that's my way of being truly helpful, it will be easy for me if I let Holy Spirit do it. And if it's not easy, even when I do it with Holy Spirit, it's not meant for me, and I don't have to try to change it and to make me suffer. So I can really connect to that. Thank you for sharing that.
Hey, you're welcome. Discovering our own individual authenticity it has been the most exciting journey for me. The discovery of how wonderful and actually God is by discovering how absolutely expansive and wonderful I am. And because I know that about every single person I meet. And I can't not do that. It's like, I know who you are. I got it. I have to treat you well, or I step out of integrity. Do you like how you feel? No, I know how to not make myself feel like crap. And I don't do the things ahead of time of the stuff that doesn't make me feel good. I don't do the stuff that doesn't make me feel good anymore. But anyway, I could go on, and I will. But so thank you for being here, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Been listening to Herein Lies the Peace of God with Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert and Reverend Glen Ganaway. To find out more about Jacquelyn and to donate to Awakening Together Sanctuary, go to www.awakening-together.org. To find out more about Glen and to donate to the Mighty Companions Ministries, go to www.glenganaway.com. That's GLENGANAWAY.com.